Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 12 Top 25 predictions. Sorry for being late. We're missing the 10 a.m. window. I had a really crappy day at work yesterday, and I felt like garbage when I came home. I just wanted to do nothing but sleep. I just wanted to do nothing but sleep. So I woke up today and figured the 10 a.m. games are all kind of just whatever. Like, no one really cares. They're whatever games. But the second half of the day is where stuff gets interesting, so I'm trying to pop out a video before the 12 p.m. window opens. So without saying too much, like and subscribe and help a comment always helps. Let's get this video out. Mercer at Alabama. Something to note about this Mercer team is that they're like a one-loss team in FCS, and they're one of the top ranked. So I do think, with this on your schedule, Mercer's been looking for nothing but this game. This is their one shot at making their name known. And the line is 42. I think Mercer is going to give them a bit of a hard time. Alabama has struggled to put teams away that they should be putting away. So maybe give Mercer some faith to cause some trouble on the road against Alabama. Penn State at Purdue. There's no upset here. Purdue has upset me all year. Virginia at Notre Dame. We get a lot of free games to start off, a lot of easy predictions. Notre Dame has quite frankly been rolling. I do think Virginia's a bit of a sleeper team still, but Notre Dame's been rolling. That is not Virginia at Notre Dame. Sorry, I tried to make this really fast. Boston College was on a bit of a heater, but they recently sat their star quarterback, Nick Castellanos, I think is how you pronounce it, and he decided to just say peace. And it made headlines. That's the only way I figured out about it. But that was a big loss for Boston College. So Boston College, could go on the road with this new quarterback and cause some problems. I do think they are still a competitive team pretty much everywhere else, and after all, the quarterback got sat for a reason, so maybe there's still a bit of fight there, but I think SMU's got it in their home stadium. Louisville at Stanford. There's a lot of games we're just going to fly right through. I don't think Stanford is anything good. They're probably not going to be able to upset Louisville. Louisville's got those quality losses. LSU at Florida. Sorry to my LSU fans out there, but LSU has just been a complete and utter disappointment this year. And originally, in my SEC prediction video this year, at the start, like before everything, I said Florida would win this one because, it's the swamp and whatnot. But Florida's injured without DJ Lagway or even the other quarterback. I'm just questionable. Florida, they kind of got their teeth kicked in against Texas. I think it could be like sort of competitive for the most part, but LSU needs a bounce back against or after their embarrassment against Alabama. So I think they'll win this one pretty handily, but it'll be close for a majority of the game. Missouri at South Carolina. This is one of the only both top 25 teams in matchup this week, and one of them just shouldn't even be a top 25 team at all. And that's why I've got South Carolina absolutely killing Missouri, because South Carolina, like I said in my last video, is one score away from being two games that were one score away from wins. They could be a one-loss team right now, and one of the best teams in the SEC, one of the best teams in the country. They could be one of the top teams right now. Missouri, on the other hand, has played two opponents that are relatively good in the SEC, and they got absolutely killed. So, and they were also road games. This is still a road game. So give me South Carolina by a lot. This South Carolina team's also coming off of a heater against Texas A&M. Then I think they had a bye week and then a road game. So these fans are fiending, to say the least, for a home game, and they are going to rock Missouri. Boise State at San Jose State. I think you can expect a shootout here. Washington State and San Jose State had one of the greatest games of the year that nobody really got to watch. So I do think San Jose State could cause some issues here in their home stadium. After all, this is kind of their last opportunity this season to make their names known. And I'd love to see Boise State lose, but I don't think they will. They've got that kind of team on their hands and that beautiful quality loss. ASU at Kansas State. Of course, this game is one of the only talking points of this video, and it looks like it's because my team. But honestly, this is actually a really good matchup. Upon further inspection, Kansas State Stadium doesn't really hold too many people. Like, actually, ASU Stadium holds like 14,000 more people for reference. Kansas State Stadium doesn't really hold too many people, and while they do have a pretty lit home field advantage and a pretty lit crowd, I think ASU, honestly, both teams are 7-2. Line is 7.5 for Kansas State. How much I'd love to pick ASU to go on the road. Something that has been a trend in ASU history has been they suffer on the road. And after all, their 2 losses are road games. They're undefeated at home. But when you hit the road, stuff gets a little interesting. And Kansas State, the key here is, as Barry McCockiner would do in his NFL predictions, the key point here is how many turnovers Avery Johnson commits when he is pressured. But the problem is, I don't know that exact number, of course, but I know he throws a lot of interceptions and makes mistakes when he is under pressure. And the problem here is ASU has not generated a whole lot of pressure this season. Oftentimes, quarterbacks are able to just sit freely in the pocket and do what they want. If ASU can formulate pressure, maybe drop blitzes more often, and pressure Avery Johnson into making those mistakes, then ASU could potentially flip the script on Kansas State and cause an upset. Or they just are going to struggle to generate pressure against Avery Johnson, and he's going to just sling the rock over ASU and especially run the ball. Dude can run. He's fast. I think there's no question about ASU's offense versus Kansas State's defense, where Kansas State's defense is probably their strong point of this team. ASU's offense is definitely the strong point. While their defense has definitely been a very good talking point for ASU, the offense is just ridiculous right now, and it's really not built around a whole much. I mean, Cam Scatterby is just a beast right now. Sam Leavitt is one of the greatest freshman quarterbacks in the league right now. That's not an overstatement. He has been performing like it. And then you've also got a wide set of receivers, young or veteran, that can make stuff happen. You've got a solid tight end. O-line is kind of iffy. But ultimately, the offense, I think as long as they don't turn the ball over and make dumb mistakes like they did against like Kansas and Texas Tech and Cincinnati, I think ASU can perform fairly well offensively against Kansas State. But in terms of the other side of the ball, which is really the main talking point, is when Kansas State has the ball, can ASU's defense show up when they need to and make important stops? And then, of course, on the other side of the ball, can ASU's offense, score the points? Also, another talking point in this game is ASU's got a kicker problem. We had a major kicker problem that made headlines where Kenny Dillingham said we're having open tryouts for kickers, which I'm not really sure they found anybody. So I believe we're still rocking with the same set of kickers. And they definitely have been struggling. They cost us that Cincinnati game, I'll say that. ASU's defense locked Cincinnati down to 0 points in the second half, and we tried to settle for 2 field goals in which we could have gone for 4th downs, but we settled for 2 field goals in which they were missed. You make one of those, you give your team an opportunity to score a touchdown and tie it, but instead we tried to settle for the field goals both times, and we missed both times. ASU, if we have to settle for field goals, I'm worried. I'm not sure we're going to be able to hit those. So ASU has to score touchdowns here. But I think we could see an interesting score, and I'm going to give Kansas State the edge here. I'm just not too sure about ASU on the road. It's too risky to call. But I think this is a really even matchup. Or, Kansas State has played quality teams. Kansas State could, on the other side of the spectrum, just walk over ASU, who hasn't really played much competition this year. That's the side we don't want to talk about. Oregon at Wisconsin. Wisconsin could actually cause a lot of issues in this game. They have been sneaky good this year and caused issues with teams. They definitely played Penn State tough. They played USC tough for the most part before they just let USC come all the way back. But they did kind of get shat on by Alabama. Wisconsin could cause some issues here, maybe for the first half, and I think they will, as this is kind of Wisconsin's last opportunity at a big win to solidify their season. this is their last like big home game, that like their last ranked opponent. They get Nebraska on the road and then Minnesota at home, which are still two quality opponents. But I think Oregon, number one in the nation, Wisconsin's probably going to show up to this game. And I think Oregon will prevail, but it's going to be close. Tennessee at Georgia. So this is the big game of the week. And Georgia has been kind of looking like dog shit throughout a lot of this season. I think that should speak a wide number, or I think that should speak a lot about the Georgia-Texas matchup and how easy Georgia made it look against Texas. Quite frankly, you look at Texas's schedule, they have not played really anybody. Like, their hardest opponents they've played so far were Vanderbilt and Georgia, and they lost one, and they barely won one by 3 points. Right now, they're playing on the road against Arkansas, and Texas's defense is locking up, but it's 10-0 in the third quarter. It's a close game. And then they get Kentucky, and Texas plays at Texas A&M. After that, I think Texas A&M can win that game, but Texas is probably just not a good quarterback. They got a lucky draw in the SEC, the wide variety of SEC teams in the pool. Tennessee has played some very tough opponents. While Tennessee did actually lose against Arkansas, that was a different Arkansas team then that fell apart. Tennessee has a big win against Alabama, who quite frankly beat Georgia, but that's not how you can look at football. But Tennessee, something I've noticed from this team throughout the year is their offense is no shining point, but their defense is really solid. And Carson Beck, if he cannot show up and perform in this game, I'm taking Tennessee by a million years. It may be close, but I'm taking Tennessee as long as Carson Beck throws 3 interceptions or fumbles the ball. This Georgia team has been a turnover machine this year, and it's cost them so many games. If they can put away the turnovers, they win their football games, and they're undefeated and number one, undoubtedly. But they turn the ball over a bunch, and that is largely due to Sid the Sloth, Carson Beck. And I think he's going to perform like that in this game, even though you get home field here, and there could be, some passion and some momentum. Tennessee fans will travel, and this game is the biggest game of the year for both teams, IMO. I mean, Tennessee's actually probably biggest game was going to be against Alabama, considering that was a home game, and Georgia maybe, I don't know, this is probably Georgia's biggest game because this is their first, ranked home game. But I think Tennessee's going to win as long as Georgia turns the ball over a bunch. If Tennessee just gets the ball to their offense, I think the offense can they've got a really good run game as well, but their passing game has been kind of short this year. So we'll see how Georgia holds up the run game. If they're forcing Tennessee to throw the ball, that's where things could get interesting. But I do think Georgia is going to struggle immensely with not turning the ball over. And if they do, you can expect a Georgia domination. If they finally put away the turnovers, you could expect a Georgia domination. But if they continue to perform like they have all season, Tennessee might take this one. New Mexico State at A&M. New Mexico State lost everybody, head coach and a lot of players. They're 2-7 now. Washington State at New Mexico. New Mexico actually has a pretty solid offense. So, I'm going to call for a shootout, but who knows? Kansas at BYU. BYU is only favored by 2.5, and I think Kansas, coming off of a heater win against Iowa State, can cause some issues. They have gone on the road and performed like a really good football team, and are they finding their footing? This is a night game. 8:15 p.m. in Mormontown, and BYU has been definitely scraping by, but there's a lot to learn from that Utah game, and that's a major rivalry. You can expect major rivalries like that to be close. There was so much passion in that game. I mean, the stadium was absolutely rocking, but this game is not as big of a rivalry. You can expect Kansas to come into this game and play tough, but I've got BYU coming out on top still and remaining undefeated, and that is the last game of this week, at least what wasn't in the first half that I missed. I guess a little recap of what's going on in the first half of games. Ohio State is dominating Northwestern. Texas is playing a close defensive game against Arkansas, 10-0. Utah, their quarterback is just dog shit. If only they had Cam Rising, they would be such a better team this year because their defense is really shutting down Colorado right now. Colorado has 2 turnovers and only 160 yards of offense, but 21 points. And Utah has 9 points, 83 yards of offense, and 1 turnover. A lot of their points are largely due to their defense giving them the ball in happy field position. But, Utah's Utah this year. 21-9 is the score in halftime. Clemson Pitt 17-7 in halftime. I'd love to see a Pitt upset there, but Pitt kind of has fallen off since that SMU game. And then Tulane at Navy. Tulane is winning 14-0, and they're about to punch in another touchdown. In terms of FBS games, or I guess just not ranked games, there's nothing important going on. So don't worry. Me being late really did not miss anything important. That's why I chose to sleep in today. But yeah, that's all for this video. Like and subscribe to help a comment always helps. That's all for me. Adios.